I just want to thank everybody for joining us today. I also want to thank the California Foundation for Independent Living Centers for allowing us to use this platform. This is the second year we've done it. Rosemary and Kim, you've been absolutely fantastic. Rosemary has been wonderful in helping us do that, and so I want to give them a special thanks for helping us put this all together. And the main focus of today is we'll be going over the upgrades to AT4ALL, the 2014 upgrades. We will be using the Nebraska site, so things may look a little bit different, but you'll be able to see kind of just the overall changes, or I'll be describing the overall changes we've made to the site. If you have questions, Rosemary, would you prefer that maybe they put them in the chat, or should we break for questions? What's the better? I'm fine either way.
Whichever. Well, if there's any questions in the chat box, I'll be sure to bring that up to your attention just in case.
Okay, wonderful. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. These changes, I hope if people aren't aware, we vote on upgrades and changes to the database on an annual basis. Folks from all over the country, I think we have 17 other state partners. We have main contacts in each of the states. Kim is our main contact in California, and then some of our other state partners are joining us as well today. And each of those state partners check with their stakeholders, and we all bring together suggestions for possible updates and improvements to the site every year. We kind of sometimes whittle those suggestions down, so maybe combine some, and then we vote on the changes. Those that win by a majority vote, we implement those changes. So that's what we're going to be going over today. Once those changes were voted on, I'm going to let Nate introduce himself because he is our equipment person. I'm going to be kind of the talker today, and he's going to be more of the Vanna White. So Nate, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and tell them how you're involved with all of this?
Yeah. Those of you who've been around for a while and recognize my name probably, but I am involved as the head developer for any upgrades and things that we've done and as we've developed the site. I've been working on this project since 2004, and we contract with ATP in Lincoln, Nebraska to do these updates, and hoping you like them.
So after the changes were voted in, Nate and I set priorities and implementation strategies for the various updates, and that's what we're going to go through today. We're going to go through the changes and how they were implemented, and I'll be doing my best to describe them, and Nate will be kind of demonstrating them on the screen, but I will be doing my best to describe them for folks who are on the call, or folks if you want to follow along on your own website. If you're on the call, you can do that as well. We made some pretty significant improvements to the search function. That was our first set of priority upgrades. First off, I'm going to give Nate a little bit of time to see if he can get to the search. We are going to have a little bit of a delay, so please bear with us. There'll be an audio delay as well as probably a delay as what you're seeing on the screen. But the first set of upgrades had to do with the search. First of all, we created a search titles only category, and we kind of combined that a little bit with also searching by relevancy and things like that. So now search results are matched to the title more than they are matched to anything else. For example, like titles now way more than the descriptors. Before, I know one of the problems we had here in the state of Nebraska is if you search for bed, if someone wanted to search for a hospital bed and they just typed in the term bed into their search function, they would get everything and anything that had the word bed anywhere in the title or the descriptor or anything like that. So folks would be searching for hospital beds, and their first 10 or 20 results would be pillboxes. Well, because in the description for those pillboxes, it said bed time. So that wasn't very functional for the folks that we're working with. So we updated the search a little bit so that now the title, quote unquote, weighs more than descriptors. So you're going to get better search results. Let's see here. Nate, are you demonstrating that right now? Exactly. So typed in hospital bed, and the first results that we get are actually more related to that than you were getting beforehand. I also added the ability to sort search results by available items. Before, when you searched for items, whether it was available or not, would show up on your search results. Now, only you can sort to have available items show up first. Your non-available items are still there. It's just that the available items, the ones that are available for free or for loan or anything like that, are towards the top. So we've added that. We've added a little bit better relevancy. The system now sorts by relevancy, depending on what words you've entered into your search field. It can now sort by availability, and it now weighs the titles of the device more than it does the descriptors. So those were just kind of simple changes, but I feel big changes, and that we were able to implement to make the search flow a little bit better. Nate, was there anything that you wanted to demonstrate in the search functions?
At this point in time, I don't think so. Really, the relevant search seems to be the catch-all that's really helping folks get to better results than they've had in the past. And so that's really what we default to, and that incorporates all the things that we've talked about: the availability, the titles being a higher priority, and the other pieces there too. So that's kind of all wrapped into one, and by default it's there, so you may not notice other than that hopefully you get better search results than you did before.
Thanks, Nate. A couple of other things that we added having to do with searching for items. We did add a new search category, and that is seating, or actually two search categories: seating, which you can kind of see there, and sensory items. We added those two new search categories, so you can now categorize items as you list them as seating or sensory items as appropriate. The other search-related change that we made is before, if you searched for an item and looked at that item description, it would provide you information on, it would give you the name of the program that has that item. But in order to view the contact information for that program, you had to be logged in. You had to create, if you don't have an account, you had to create an account, and then you had to log in, and then it would give you the contact information. We found that was a barrier. A lot of folks, a lot of our state partners agreed that was a barrier to folks. They might find an item, but as soon as it made them log in or create an account, they might have just given up and not proceeded with trying to borrow or access that item. So we made it that the name of the program is a live link to the program's contact information. And even if a user is not logged in, they can click on that link to access the contact information. So we felt this was better. I mean, from my standpoint at least, I feel like this is better customer service. So if someone finds an item and they click on that program information, it gives them my direct contact information so that I can work with them to help develop an account and match them appropriately with a piece of equipment or device. So, you know, the search, like I said, just a few small, what may seem like small changes, and maybe not that noticeable because we've kind of just, we made some tweaks here and there, but have really improved the search. Before I move on to the other upgrades, does anybody have any questions or feedback on the search upgrades for 2014? Also, if you'd like further explanation on any of these upgrades, just let me know. Okay, not hearing any questions. And folks on the phone, if you do need me to describe something better, If you're not quite catching it, please let me know, and I'd be happy to go into a little bit more detail. The next section of upgrades that we focused on were loans. The loan there were several suggestions, and we lumped them into one loan category. A lot of these upgrades that we're going to be showing you were developed to address a few issues. One of the issues was a better loan follow-up, making sure that loans didn't fall through the cracks, that loans are being followed up. You know, sometimes having just an email notification letting you know about a request wasn't good enough. We needed to do something a little bit better. Also improving or creating Cecilia, it looks like Cecilia had a question. Look for iPad on our exchange. Had to go to second page to find them. Cecilia, that's a really good note, and I've had that, and I hope everyone can see Cecilia's questions here on the chat. With iPads, and that we get that same result here in Nebraska, and that is because if you look at a lot of the iPad cases, for example, the first one that comes up, I hope everyone can see that, is big grips frame for iPad 2, iPad 3, iPad 4. The computer is looking for the number of times iPad is appearing in the title and in the description. That's kind of how the algorithm works. So it's looking for how relevant the search is, or how relevant that listing is to your search, what you put into the search field. So the fact that there's iPad in there 3 times tells the system that, hey, that's pretty darn relevant to me. So sometimes we find that a lot with iPads, is that it says iPad case and then iPad case again. iPad is in there a few times. So maybe that just might be why that's happening, Cecilia, is that your iPads are probably just listed as iPads, whereas maybe some of your cases have iPads in there a few times. So Nate, do you have any recommendations for maybe producing some better search results for things like iPads that come up with this?
Well, that's a really hard one because, I mean, it makes sense. But, you know, if you could limit when you create the item's name there, since the titles have a lot of weight, and, you know, like, for example, take this big grips frame, if they could just say big grips frame and then talk about this fits in iPad 2, 3, and 4 in the description, it would still get the information out there, but it wouldn't dominate the search in that one. So some naming might be in order to change. So even if, like a second one here, iPad case, the ultimate iPad case, just put it in there once, because while it is an iPad case, it's kind of hard to not call it what it is. But it doesn't need to be in there twice. Maybe some more creative naming for the title would be
and that's
helpful.
Something that we are going to be working on. One is having some ongoing webinars and ongoing training for all users nationwide. And one of the webinars I plan on hosting is listing your item and how listing your item impacts your search results. And so maybe we can work on listing our items to make better search results. Derek, if everyone can see, you could also make a rule to list iPads as iPad device. Then when you search for iPad, make sure to include iPad device in the search. That's another great suggestion for maybe listing an item. Derek, I want to clarify, are you saying making that a rule for listing the item or making that a rule as how the site functions? I'm assuming it's a rule for listing the item. Okay, okay. And also, we added a category earlier this year for tablets, I believe. So you can also search by that category if your iPads are listed as in that tablet device. So that might be a tablet and touchscreen device, and that might be a better, you're still getting a lot of that iPad case, iPad Air, you know, because of how many times maybe the iPad shows up in the title, but that's another suggestion. Those iPads are tricky, but there are some ways to find to get around there. Any other questions about the search updates? Numbers are also tricky. I got a earful from one of my staff because we list ramps on the website, and we list them as 5-foot ramps or using the digit 5 or 12-foot ramps. And so when someone searched for 5-foot ramps, other results came in before that, and they just couldn't understand why that didn't come up first. Well, when you type in a digit there, keep in mind all the other digits, all the other numbers that we use in AT4ALL. Web ID numbers, manufacturer, all sorts of numbers. So I will say that typing in a number in there, aside from the web ID number, is not going to give you great results sometimes, and that's something if we can work on, we will, but that's just another little kind of idiosyncrasy. So yeah, if you can see Nate putting in there kind of more some more specific ways to look for it, and maybe getting some better results. So that's another thing with iPads. Oh, Sue has a suggestion, ramp/6-foot. But vehicles, we be sure to put the year first so they show up first in line. Okay, that's a great suggestion. And every program is a little bit, exactly. Every program is a little bit different, and you're going to list things. But yeah, one thing I'm planning on is having a webinar so that we can all get together and talk about how we list our items and how best to list our items to get the best search results. Nate is still searching for that 5-foot ramp. It may not be available right now, Nate. That might be why you're not finding it. And that was another thing. I had a staff member contact me and said, I know we have 12-foot ramps, but none of them are showing up on the search. That's just not happening. I can't find any 12-foot ramps. Well, all the 12-foot ramps were checked out. So they weren't showing up in those first pages because they were all towards the end. Kim, you had a question. Is it a Boolean search? Nate, do you want to weigh in on that? I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm never sure.
No, that's correct. We've moved away from a Boolean type search, mostly because people in general don't get it, and people are used to going to a Googly type thing and typing in random phrases and expecting to get results. And so they're not going to be really careful about saying ramp and 5 for making sure that they're both in there, or ramp or 5 or something like that. So we pretty much have enabled that and disabled that and gone to more of the fuzzy search, which helps us to get that relevance out there. And I think the benefits are weighing the drawbacks on that at this point in time.
So Nate, this is Kim. I have one more question. So if I put quotes around 2 words that I want to see only if they're together, does that work? I think I might have missed that.
I think the quotes will give you a search phrase option. So if I were to search for something, if I wanted to look for a particular phrase, like iPad case. Of course, we know the cases always come up first, but it would bring more relevance to that group of words as opposed to what it was before. If you remember, my last time I searched for iPad, the super iPad green thing came up first because it had 3 words of iPad in there. But now this one, since I did the phrase search, this one that has the iPad cases show up first. So the phrase does still work if you put quotes around your search. Which is different than no quotes, because if you don't put quotes around it, it looks for the word iPad and the word case. If you put quotes around it, it looks for the phrase iPad case. So that's kind of the distinction there.
Kim, did that answer your question?
Yes, thank you. That's very helpful.
And I use quotes all the time. It still works. If But when I was telling people they should use quotes around their search phrase, most people literally didn't know what I was talking about. And one person told me that was so 90s. So I find it helpful. But I think that's what Nate was trying to get back. You know, people are used to just going in and searching for whatever they want and getting something. So that's why we've kind of, yep, but it works, Sue. You're exactly right. It might be 90s, but it works. All right, I'm going to go ahead in the interest of time and go to the next section of upgrades, and that revolving around loans. If you have questions, continue just to type them in, and I'll get to them as soon as possible. We made some big changes to the loans, loan functions, and like I said, a lot of that was to address, you know, making sure that we're having loan follow-up, maybe have a better system for people who are waiting for items, and add some other functionality to the loans to make them a little bit better from a manager standpoint. So what you have here in front of you is our loan dashboard. Instead of having drop-down menus, we switched to this format, and we've got the pending loans, waiting loans, what loans are out, what loans are now overdue, open-ended loans, and then the returned loans. And those are returned loans since the start, since you started loaning items. Yeah, maybe go to somewhere that has some more. Yeah. The pending loans are those loans that folks have requested, and so this will help with follow-up because the information will be available at a glance that that you have a loan in there, a pending loan there. And before, it might just sit in pending forever, and people weren't sure, well, did you call that person or did you call that person? Maybe it would just be sitting in the pending loans for a really long time, as you can see these have done. These have been sitting there since 9/30, which isn't terrible, but if they've been sitting there for a while. Well, that pending loan number doesn't go down or go to 0 until that loan has been addressed, until that loan has been taken care of. So you're always going to know what you have pending, what you have waiting, what you have out, and what needs to be addressed right away based on this new format. So this is going to, I think, decrease the amount of loans that maybe fall through the cracks, because it's going to be very obvious if a loan has been processed or not. As you can see, or for folks on the phone, if you go into the pending, if you select your pending loans, you can, there are certain actions that you can do from those pending loans. You can click on the person's name, you can click on the item name, but you can also process the loan from the pending page, and you can also cancel the loan. So if you contact this person, you say, okay, I got your chair, your request for that chair, and they say, oh, you know what, now I don't need it. You could cancel the loan, or you can process it from this page. The next section is we added a waiting list. Before, if folks requested an item that was already out on loan, it would just sit in your pending drop-down menu until the item was checked back in, and then you would contact the person that was on the pending list. Well, still kind of works that way. I don't know, Nate, can you find it? Can we go to an item that's already checked out? Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm working on.
So this one is already, is it out? Yeah. I'm having a hard here. So we go to an item that's, or if an item is already out and the person attempts to check it out, they will be informed. Well, we got to check it out. Yes, they will be informed that this item is out and would they like to be added to the waiting list. So they can select that. Can you kind of highlight that, Nate, with your cursor there? And folks on the phone, again, if someone requests an item that's already out, it will give them a little box to check if they want to be added to the waiting list, or they can just cancel if they don't want to wait. So if someone chooses to be added to the waiting list by checking that box, and then they answer all the appropriate questions, we had to add some data for, if you can see the screen, ignore our employment purpose data. We needed to add that for one of our programs here in the state. So they answer all, they indicate what the primary purpose of the loan is, and then they finish the loan. That loan will then go into the pending folder, or the pending dashboard, pending section of the dashboard for that program. And the person, it's in there waiting right there. And if the program manager, the equipment manager wanted to contact that person and show them, say this is waiting, once the item comes back in, they can process the loan directly from the waiting list, or maybe the person calls back and says, no, I don't want to wait that long, and they can actually cancel the loan from the waiting list as well. The waiting list works regardless of how the person requests the loan. If an equipment manager does a loan ad and that item is out, you will be prompted to be placed on a waiting list. If you bookmark items that are already requested, once you try to process any loans from your bookmarks, you will be prompted about the waiting list. We've tested it a number of different ways. The waiting list also keeps track of who was placed on the waiting list first. So if we had 2 folks waiting for this orange chair, this medium orange chair, ball chair, and it looks like the first person requested it at 12:31. If someone came in and requested it at 12:45 Central, you could not loan it out to that second person. It would tell you that it's not available to loan out because someone else is waiting for it. And folks, that maybe I do have a whole PDF outlining all these loan changes, so if anybody wants that, I did send that to Kim and I think some other folks, and if anyone else needs that, I can certainly send that out to you too. But it kind of breaks it down in some narratives and some screenshots. So that's the waiting list. For example, here in Nebraska, we had an issue, and it was part staff issue, part AT4ALL issue, where we had one individual waiting for an item, and we had another staff member check that item in and immediately check it back out to somebody, not knowing that other folks were waiting for it. For the waiting list now kind of resolves that for us. If someone is waiting for it, they can indicate they are waiting for it in AT4ALL, and then the person that's checking it in would not be able to check it out again to somebody else because it's in a waiting list status. So that's how the waiting list. Did I miss anything, Nate? I think I covered everything on the waiting list, or there were other functions I didn't cover?
I think that covers it.
Okay. So we got at that. Another simple thing, Nate.
Hi, I'm sorry.
Okay.
Hi, I'm sorry. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
This is Kern. I have a question.
Sure.
On the waiting list, if it's on the same item, like the iPad, if we're doing it on the waiting list on the iPad, we can do first, second. So we click on the first person, the waiting list, and the second person has to wait then, right? But how long do we wait before the first person can answer? Like, let's say we contact the first person, we don't wait. Do we have to wait a week, or they have a timetable to answer before we give it to the second person?
I guess that's up to your program. Each program is going to be different. The site doesn't care. The site's not going to tell you, oh, this person's been waiting too long, or that's not going to matter. I think that would be up to each individual program as to how long you're going to wait. Because some folks request it and say, yeah, I really want it, and then when it comes available, maybe they don't want it anymore. So how long you're going to give that person is up to you. I don't know if Kim, you set that or not, but that would be up to each individual program, I think.
One thing I might add to that is if there's an item on the waiting list, say you've got somebody waiting for an iPad, and then the iPad gets checked in, if you're the facilitator for that loan, you'll get an email that says, oh, by the way, this item was checked in. Would you go please look at this loan and then contact that person and see if they still want it? So there's an email notification to help make sure that those, when the items are returned, the person on the waiting list gets notified as soon as possible. But it's through the manager.
When we implemented this, if I can add something else too, and thank you, Nate, for reminding me about that. You know, it's in date order, it's date time order for the waiting list, so it's really first come, first serve. And I got the question from one of our equipment managers, but what if the second person in line needs it more? You know, they're going to have surgery and they need that ramp more than the person above them. Well, I kind of argued with them about, well, how are you just deciding, you know, who needs this more, whose need is greater? But if you do run into a similar situation about, you know, well, this person doesn't really need it now, the second person on the list does, it would be up to each, what I told my equipment managers is it would be up to you to contact that person that's first on the waiting list and see if they don't mind waiting longer, they don't mind being bumped to second, or is there another device you can help them locate and loan them that to them. So it's not going to take care of those kind of maybe internal program issues that we all have to address, but it does give you the option of placing folks on the waiting list and managing a waiting list in a bit of a better fashion. Okay, we've got some, just to quickly go over, these haven't changed much, but you also have the pending and the waiting. You also what you have out. So Nate, can you go ahead and click on that. So these are all your loans that are out. And then we have all of the overdue loans too up there. So those are separated out. And then any open-ended loans, and then of course all of the loans that we've ever returned, that have ever been returned. So that completes the loan dashboard. You can still search each section. You'll see that there's a search phrase. So if you're searching for a particular overdue loan, you could enter a word or a website ID, and it would bring up those related items. And you can still sort that search. You can sort by due date, descending, ascending. I think you can do item, borrower, so you can still do your search and your sorting within this dashboard. The other big change that we made, does anybody have any questions about the dashboard before I go on?
Yeah, my quick question, I noticed you put in the search phrase iPad. Can you search simply one of those categories by, for example, iPad by overdue, or will it always look at the universe of all 6 of the categories up top?
It's going to search within that category is my understanding. So if you're in overdue and search for iPad, it will just bring up the overdue iPads or the anything. Does that make sense?
I thought the return, was that the expected return date was 6/19, or was that the actual return date?
That was
where I was confused.
That's the expected return date, I believe. It's red, it's overdue. Mm-hmm.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
No problem.
Yep. And to answer your question too, since I switched to pending on this sheet, and I have the search phrase iPad in there, even though there's 3 items there, there's nothing showing up below because there's no iPads that are pending. So the search phrase is per category.
That's great. Thank you.
And Nate, could you stay on this real quick? Oh, on the loan list, I just wanted to point out one other. We also added the web ID number. Well, when you add the website ID for an item next to the item's names when searching for loans by borrower name. So I think we added that. I don't know that we added. Yep, it's right there. The website ID is right there next to the item, so that maybe is a little bit. That makes it a little bit more functional for some folks. So we've added that. That was a small change, but a good one. So we added the IDs on each page for loans and items. And let's see here, we talked about the waiting list. The other big one is editing loans. And we added the function, so if someone is borrowing multiple items, you have the option for editing and you want to edit one of them, you have the option for editing all of them. So it looks like we have somebody right there that is borrowing a couple items. So if we go in to edit that loan, it will prompt us to perhaps, if we want, you may want to edit, it'll be a little prompt that says, you may want to edit these loans too. Check any items that also need the same data updated. So it will list all the other items that individual has out and will give us the option to update the due dates and the email notification dates for all the items that the individual has out. Now, Nate, or is this, I want to just this isn't changing everything, is it? Or you're going to cancel this? Don't want to mess up people's loans.
I'm not going to hit save is what I'm
okay,
not going to do.
Good.
Thanks for being careful with your item. That's good.
Okay, Derek had a question. I am not seeing an option to reprint the loan agreement on this page. If you do finish the loan, it should give you that option, shouldn't it, Nate, to reprint the loan agreement?
Previously, the loan agreement, the reprint was on the loan edit page. But since we were adding in the items here, we removed it. That's one of the reasons I added a loan details page. So if you're like looking at the same plasma car, this little box over here as icon is not just an icon to make things cute. It's actually a link to the details of the loan altogether. And so then from there you can print the loan agreement or do some other actions related to the loan. So that's a kind of a little bit of a wrinkle there, but I think it makes more sense in the long haul once we get used to it, because why would you edit a loan to print the agreement? Really, wouldn't you want to just go to the information about that loan? And so that's kind of a flow thing that we kind of worked out.
But if you were to actually edit that loan, that plasma car loan, it would give you the option to reprint the loan agreement, correct, Nate? Or not? Maybe I'm
because when you're done editing it, it actually redirects you to the loan details page, which would have that on there. So
okay, so
as a
yeah,
confirmation, it shows you the.
So Derek, if you were just looking to reprint a loan agreement, you could just go to that little box and click that. Or if you did indeed edit the loan, once you were done, it would take you back to that loan details page, which you could then print the loan agreement from there as well. So we made those changes where you could edit. If you edited one item, it would give you the option to edit information on, have it all apply to all the loans. Regarding checking in loans, if someone has borrowed multiple items and you only want to check in one or two, or you want to check in all of them, you now have kind of a similar function to editing the loan. So in this case, we can check all that apply. And it's going to check the peripherals as well. We add the survey questions. And you answer the survey questions and finish the loan. But if someone has borrowed multiple items and only wants to return, 2 out of the 5, you would just mark the 2 out of the 5. I don't know. Yeah, exactly. An iPad, it doesn't really apply, but we may have someone borrowing several different maybe phones or communication devices or switches, so they may only want to check in certain ones. So we just have the option for editing or checking all in at the same time. Nate kind of already went over the link to the loan details, which was the next item on my list. But yeah, we did add that little kind of gift box next to each item that you can click on. And do a couple things from that loan details page. You can do the loan agreement, you can edit the loan. I think you can also check in the loan from there as well. Like some of the other things that we added related to loans, we included the survey questions on both the loan agreement and the loan receipt. We also added the ability to add a comment box. At first this was just standard, the comment box would be on there no matter what, and thus caused the loan page to go into 2 pages, and people lost their minds. So we made it an option, and when I say lost their minds, I mean in my state. It was quite the debacle. But then we made it the option that you could just print with comments. That's an option. You can either print with comments or print without comments. And if you do print with comments, it will automatically take you to 2 pages. There will be a 2-page minimum. And the reason for this is that we have to format the site to accommodate for everyone's terms and conditions. And some folks have longer terms and conditions, and other folks have shorter. So we have to make sure that the site is able to handle all that. So so in some states they have a lot of space in their loan agreement, their terms and conditions. That's because they don't have very many, and other places have filled that whole section up, and we have to accommodate that. So sometimes that makes for a little funky printing, but and if you do add those comments, that is going to push it to that 2-page minimum because of how we have to format the loan agreement page. Are there any questions about the loan dashboard or wait list, the editing of the loan?
Yes, I do have a question. This is Arun with the Kern Assistant Tech Center. And
yes,
right
now
I'm looking at the overdue page, and I see that there's one, and then I also see that there's one before that on the 19th. Would you mind going back, Nate, to the overdue page?
Is that right?
I see that. Yeah, that one right there. That's the one. Okay, I like that. I do like the format and the layout of that. But I do also notice that it says the first person's name is Christine Nelson. Do you think that we should add the phone number there as well, and maybe the email? Instead of having to
if you click
on the name, then open up another page, and then have to find the contact information, you know, then it would have to open all these pages to contact this person. If there was a line there with their contact information, that would be a lot easier. You think the database could handle that? To be able to add on that page the phone number and the email address of the client? I mean, I'm just thinking, I'm trying to be helpful.
Right. And I don't disagree with you. You know, I tried to, when I went through and designed this, I was trying to trim out a lot of things. And based upon where you're at, certain things are going to be more important, like overdue. I mean, the return date is a very important column. But if I'm on the pending, I don't care when the return date is, so there's no return date column. So we switched some of those things up like that and tried to pare it down. And I don't know if you recall what the old loan list page looked like, but each line was about twice as thick because it had a lot more information in there. And so we worked on trying to pare it down. Another reason we did this. That was another reason we did the loan details page, was to be able to get to all that information. All over, you look in here, you don't see a phone number or an email either. So I don't know. It doesn't seem like a crazy idea. Certainly, all the data's there. I'll talk it over and think about it. Right now, I see if I think about this space, putting that information right behind their name might be a little bit crowded, but you know, if it wrapped to the next line, I don't think it would be a deal breaker. It's something to put on our
well, I'm just saying maybe just one additional line.
Yeah.
Like on the other page, yeah, there was a ton of information on each line, but I was just thinking maybe just one additional line with the phone number and the email. You know, because we need their phone number because we're always going to have to get a hold of them.
Sure.
Nate, but if you click on Kristen, that will bring up her account, correct? And that's right there.
Yes. So
yeah.
We also made some of those in this page. You know, when you're on a list, sometimes it's annoying to have to figure out where you were again. So we made a lot of these links B to pop into a new tab, though that one didn't. But the idea being then you could still leave your list behind you and go into that. Actually, I probably would like to have those two both be popping up to a new tab. Like, but that way, you know, because you've already gone to the overview section on your program and found where you're at. And so if we have those links pop up into a new tab, kind of like this would, that sometimes is very helpful as well.
And that kind of brings me to something I was going to say towards the end.
All right, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I apologize. With the audio delay, it's kind of easy to talk over people. Sorry about that. But that brings me to something I was going to kind of talk to towards the end. Is we are going to start our upgrades after the first of the year, even though we've just finished with the 2014 upgrades. Right at the beginning of 2015, we'll start talking about our 2015 upgrades. So if you have suggestions, I think those would probably need to go to Kim. Kim, correct me if I'm wrong, but if you do have suggestions for further upgrades or changes, we can start taking those now, and perhaps maybe that additional contact information is something that we can talk about during our next round of upgrades and voting and discussion and things like that. So I'm taking those suggestions at any time, so if you have them, I'm happy to hear them. So are there any other questions about the loan dashboard or any of those different upgrades that we made to the dashboard or to the loan list? Okay. All right. I don't see any in the chat box. I think Rosemary went over this, but you have the ability to kind of raise your hand too. There's a little button you can click on, and that's really nice because then it kind of puts a red hand next to your name, and I can see that. If you do have a question, feel free to type it in or click that raised hand icon, and I'll make sure that I get to you. The next on the list, kind of some miscellaneous changes that we made is I'm going to start with items, Nate. I'm going to show that items page, adding an item. So now we've upgraded the site, so if you go to add an item, the site will automatically default to the program and the user who is logged in. Before you had to go through this, I know we did, had to go through a huge long list to find your name a lot of times. Now it automatically defaults to my name and my program. If I am listing an item for somebody else, which often happens in our office, I can change the owner simply by searching for that user's account. So if I want to change it to Nate's name, which he just demonstrated on the site, there's a link right next to the owner field that says change owner. You click on that. If a person has an active AT4ALL account, you search for their name and it changes. This kind of eliminates some delays and some hiccups that we were experiencing when trying to list an item. It would take forever for if you started typing. At least here, that's what we experienced. We would start typing, and nothing would show up, and nothing would show up, and then eventually the site would catch up, or the page would catch up, and would start filling the fields. We've kind of eliminated a lot of that delay, a lot of that hiccupiness, and also made it a lot easier for folks to list items under the appropriate name. So like I said, it automatically defaults to your program and to your name. Some other changes that we made. The general user now has access to their account history. I think that was one. Nate, can you show that on my account? So if you go to my account, if I'm just logged in as Lauren Brock, citizen of Nebraska, and go to my account, on the left-hand side of the page, you will see my history. And it will come up with all the items that I have borrowed, that I have listed, that I've received through exchange, received through reuse, or items I've sold on that page. This is nice because just the other day I got an email from someone saying, I borrowed this, I can't remember what it is. Now I can easily, I borrowed this a couple of years ago, I can't really remember it, but I need it again. I can easily look that up. But if the general user can look that up, they can initiate the loan process without having to contact me. So it makes things a little bit nicer for the end user. So that's one of the, so that's a new function. We've also, regarding email notifications, have made some changes. Programs can now personalize their auto-reply messages that borrowers receive when they request a device. So can you go into our program real quick? So what I did is I went into each of our programs. The Assistive Technology Partnership in Nebraska has a office in Omaha, office in Columbus, office in Lincoln, office in Kearney, and office in Scottsbluff. And each of those have their own loan program. And so I was able to change the email notifications, personalize those a little bit for each office, and make them sound a little bit different. So if someone requests a loan, they would get this message. And it would say, one thing we added was, if you don't hear from anybody, please give us a call. Or you can contact the AT4ALL program coordinator, and it gave my information. So that just kind of another safeguard against missing people. Then we set the loan reminder for folks who, the reminder that they might get via email a couple days before their loan is due. And that says for our program, if you have any questions, please contact the Omaha ATP office to discuss the terms of your loan, and give them my contact information. Now my favorite part, one of my biggest complaints before as just a regular ATP employee, and then when I got into this position, I never thought the overdue notices were very strong, and I wondered if we could add a little bit more oomph to them, and now we can. So the overdue loan message I changed to draw the person. It says attention in all caps, and I start off to avoid paying replacement costs for the items you borrowed, you need to contact us immediately to make arrangements for to return your loan items. So you can now, based on your program needs, you can now change those email reminders to maybe just a little bit different or say something a little bit different to help better folks access their items and then, of course, return their items. So that's one of the things we did with the email notifications. And you can change those. You can edit those at any time if you find out the wording is not really meeting your needs. Does anybody have any questions about that before I move on? Okay, I'm not seeing anything in the chat box. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Okay, the other email notification change that we've made is that you now have the option to receive just one kind of super-powered email or receive all the reminders like you're used to in the past. I could always tell when it was 8 o'clock in the morning here because I would get about 50 AT4ALL emails. Well, now I've kind of made my life a little bit easier, and I've checked this little box. If you go into your account and you scroll down, and under your current positions, you can combine, I can check a box that says combine my item management emails into one digest email. And I've chosen that, so every morning I get a little email that says, this is what you've got going on today. This is what you've got almost due. This is what you've got overdue. So I'm getting one email instead of a bunch. So that's something that people can option into. And Sue, thank you so much. I love this feature as well. I know a lot of folks in our offices now use that email as kind of a to-do list. So our equipment managers have that email and they know what they need to handle today, and they check off, you know, the emails as they go, or they check off the little notices on their email as they go. So that has been pretty popular, but we also realize that some folks prefer to have all of the emails, so that's why we made it an option. I want to remind people something about the reminder emails that was brought to my attention, and I should have brought this up when we were on the previous page, but it is a possibility for folks to receive an email, you know, a couple days before their item is due. But if you set, Nate, can you show where people were setting reminders to 0 days? And so then reminders aren't being sent out. So you got to make sure that you're entering in some sort of number for the reminder, or they won't be getting any of the email reminders. So you need to make sure that you're actually entering data in there. We also made some changes to the bookmarks and how those are managed. Now if you can bookmark multiple items or make your bookmarks for the day, log off, and your bookmarks will still be there when you log back on. So I think Nate is going to demonstrate that for folks who have who are on the webinar and can see. But we've tested it, it works. So if you're wanting to bookmark a bunch of items to demonstrate the next day, or you've got a consumer coming in and you want to make sure that you go over some specific items with that consumer, you bookmark all of those and you log off for the day. When you log back in the next morning, your bookmarks will be there. And again, I found out that a lot of staff are using this, or using this as kind of a to-do list. Well, I need to make sure that Nate, I don't think that worked because I think you're not me anymore. Nate's pretending to be, oh, he's doing his grand magic, so I will let him do that. But your bookmarks will be there even if you log off. Yep, and my bookmarks, Nate bookmarked some things for me, logged off, and then logged back in, and my items were still there. And then I can go into my bookmarks just as I always could have and initiate the loan process for those items. I can create inventory labels. I can do a custom item report. I can remove the bookmarks as well. The other thing that we changed for the bookmarks is you are now able to bookmark multiple items and delete them all at once instead of individually. So that's what we did. We add that to just one little click of the button, and you click remove all bookmarks, and all your bookmarks are removed. So
I think one thing to add to that, I believe that before, when you did a loan, if you bookmarked 5 items and did a loan for them, once the loan was over, it deleted those bookmarks because the assumption was that you're done with those for now, and it still does that like it did before.
Thanks, Nate. Okay. Well, we've got 2 more things to go over. One thing that we added under administrative checkouts, and this is very handy if you have multiple programs using your site, you can now sort administrative checkouts by program. For example, we work with a school district here in the state of Nebraska, and they love, love, love the administrative checkout for various reasons. And they tend to have a lot of items on administrative checkout a lot of the time. And you have to sort through you used to have to sort through all the admin checkouts just to find yours. But now you can sort by program. And so that will make your administrative checkout specifically for your programs a little bit better. I know some folks use this feature more than others, but we found it to be pretty handy here in the state. Nebraska. Oh, nope, here we go. So yeah, you can now search by program. The other thing that we're almost done with is creating a more mobile-friendly version of the site. For example, we had Emma from Vermont trying to do something on her phone with the site yesterday, and she just couldn't because it doesn't, you have to scroll over and scroll up. It's just not very mobile friendly, but we are almost there. That was kind of a big undertaking, and so now if you try to access the site on your tablet or phone, it'll be a lot more user friendly. So that was kind of the last big update. And Nate, before we take any more questions, I did want to go over some of the federal data. This might not be as of interest to some folks, but for our program coordinators, I know it will be. The feds decided that we needed to access or collect some more data or some different data, and I just wanted to assure everybody that we've added that function to the site so that now that you're collecting all the federal data that is required. And I think Nate's going to bring that up here so I can show you how we've added that.
A couple of things changed. Well, this will be one of them, Lauren, that has the other loan purpose that is not for decision making.
Okay. So yeah, so if for non-decision making loans, we have to, of course, indicate the benefit area as we always have, but we now also have to indicate why they chose to obtain the AT device from this program. If you do reuse in your area, this looks familiar because these are our reuse or exchange questions. We now have to ask them for non-decision making loans. So if someone indicates that they borrowed it for a short-term accommodation, well, why did you choose to borrow it from our program to meet that short-term accommodation? And they have to indicate that. So we've added that change here so that we're going to make sure that we gather all the federal data that you need. And I think the other one is we've now eliminated IT. Is that correct? IT, and now I'm drawing a blank, is now they don't want to collect data on that. Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
And the other one was professional development, right, Nate? I think that's on.
Well, I better think about that one a little bit. Yeah. Or is that in demonstrations? I don't know.
No, that's in loans. They now, I'm going to grab my information here. According to my... Nate, go ahead.
No, that's fine. I believe you. I need to get that in there. That should be in there for professional development.
That's another category that we add, that they can borrow it for short-term accommodations. Now I'm trying to find all my notes here. So we now need to add, for the primary purpose of a short-term device loan, assist in decision-making, serve as a loaner device during repair or while waiting for funding, provide an accommodation on a short-term basis for a time-limited event/situation, and also conduct training, self-education, or other professional development activities. So those will be changes. Those are the new federal
That's
changes.
not the benefit area, though. That's the loan purpose.
The primary purpose. Mm-hmm.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, okay. And one thing to note, if you're catching up on federal things, you can edit returned loans if they happen to fall on the bridge between last year and this year, and change any data that might be necessary, so that'll take care of it. So.
And also, we've added a feature, I think, in the federal auditing section, federal report auditing, where you can run reports, post changes, or pre-changes and post changes. And if you're having any issues, I know we're in that federal reporting time of year, if you're having any issues as you gather your data or running reports, please let me know, and I'll be happy to help in any way I can. Folks, I think I have covered, I've gone through my list of all of the changes that we that we've made. This is the time to ask those questions if you have any, or if you'd like to email me. I'm gonna type in my email address into the chat box. Or if Kim, if you'd rather have those questions go through you, or Kim, does it matter? Can folks email me directly?
Hi there, this is Kim. Yes, for our California partners, feel free to email Lauren directly with questions about today's presentation because she's the one who's best positioned to answer. So if you're okay with that, Lauren, we are okay with that. Thank you.
That's fine, and it's not hard to find me, basically. So, even if you didn't, you could find my email address. But I'll go ahead and put that in the chat box right then. So yeah, feel free to give me even a phone call too. I'll put my phone number in there as well. If folks are shy or questions always come up after the fact, so don't hesitate to give me a call if you think of something after the fact. And again, if you have requests I think if you have suggestions though for next year's grades though, they might be best sent to Kim, just because we tend to try to have one point of contact, and I know Kim works really hard to gather suggestions from all the folks. So if you do have suggestions for next year's, yes, please send Kim suggestions for improvements for next year, and then we can start gathering those, and I start keeping a list, and then we'll start working on that process after the first of the year. Are there any other questions about the updates or anything? I'm happy to answer them if there are. Okay, Nate, did I miss anything? Is there anything that I did not go over that I should have?
I feel like you were very thorough. I think you're good.
One thing that I did miss, I wanted to thank our captioner who is joining us today. Very much appreciate you all being able to assist here. Such a great service. I just wanted to make sure that I thanked our captioner, and hopefully I didn't talk too fast. I tend to do that. But thank you once again for being with us today. Okay, great. Thank you, Giselle, for that feedback. And if you want to ask questions or give me positive feedback, say everything is wonderful, I'd be happy to hear that too. So, but if there are none, I won't keep anybody from their busy day. Thank you so much, Sue. I appreciate that. I think we've made some really big changes, some really good changes. I think there's probably more work to be done, and that's why I encourage you to send me your suggestions for next year.
Thank you, everyone. This is Rosemary from California Foundation for Independent Living Centers. Again, I want to thank Lauren and Nathan for doing today's presentation. They went over many of the upgrades, as well as the really nice features. Folks on the call, if you need Lauren's email address, it's Lauren, LAUREN.ROCK, ROCK, @nebraska.gov. And her contact phone number is area code 402-595-1613. And again, thank you all for participating today's webinar presentation, and want to thank the captioner as well as the presenters. And have a great rest of the day.
Thank you, Rosemary, and thank you, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.